First of all, very happy to be here and to be able to follow part of the discussion, because this topic is a topic that I've encountered this topic a few times over the last years. In my previous function, I had a bit of an odd combination of responsibilities. I was Minister for Digital Agenda and for Development Cooperation, which looked like two domains which were completely disconnected one from the other, which was also my opinion when I started. Now, one of the things that struck me is that in the world of development cooperation, which in our case is focusing on Western and Central Africa, the role of technology is actually one which is completely underestimated. Technology is leapfrogging in that part of the world, and the impact is something that we vastly underestimate. And that's the case on a few domains. One of them is basically this. The impact of the smartphone in Africa today is multiple times bigger than any of the investment that we as governments have done. Now, why does it have such an impact? Well, the main reason why it has such an impact is because it is not a government thing, but because it's a commercial thing. If it would have been aid or charity, probably you would have 10 million smartphones in Africa today. Why do you have 1 billion smartphones in Africa today? Is because it's a business and because there's a profit to it. And profit is not by necessity a smart thing. I hope I don't have to convince you of that. But even in development, profit is actually a good thing because it drives a lot of innovation and it drives a lot of commercial push, and it drives the element where the commercial world very often is good at is finding what the real need is and what the value the consumer can give for it. And even in African countries where the purchasing power is extremely low, there are business models which can be developed. Now, this is about the smartphone, but in many other domains, we see that a lot of what we call the development countries are actually ahead of us. One of them is mobile payments. If you look at where is the edge of development in mobile payments today, it's not here. I mean, it starts to come now, but the mecca of mobile payments is Tanzania, is Rwanda, is Ethiopia, because there is no other infrastructure. And that's also the case with usage of drones. And actually one of the projects that we helped to realize is the one in Rwanda, which was mentioned here. And of course, it goes faster there for a number of reasons. The number one reason, of course, is that the need is much higher than here. And the second reason is that, as you said, well, there's less regulation because there's less things that can interfere. But I remember that looking at what we have learned there, that one of the things I was looking at is that, well, what can we do? What can we do here? And in 2018, we financed, together with Minister Belot, who was the Minister of Mobility at that point, we financed one of the projects which was doing a test case between two hospitals in Belgium. And it was really an example of how, and that is for me one of the more hopeful things that I've seen over the last years, is that innovation is not organized anymore the way it used to be, where innovation takes place here and it is being pushed to the rest of the world. Today we're in a multipolar world. Innovation is taking place at so many different places of the world, and it's, can I use the word, contaminating us in a very different way than what it used to be. Now, of course, the bar is much higher here because of the very complex society and the very complex economy in which we live. So we cannot just say, let's fly it through a few drones and we'll see where we get. To organize it here, you need events like this one, and you need collaborations like this one, where the European Commission is playing its role, where governments are playing its role, and where healthcare organizations, and we know how complex it is being organized, are open to enter in a debate with the industry. And I was happy to hear that this is maybe one of the first times that actually you're sitting together and exchanging views on this. I have to say I'm a big fan of these types of things, not so much because, the idea of drones, of course, is an exciting one, but in a broader sense. If we look at healthcare these days, one of the key characteristics of healthcare is that it is a market with no limit. in the sense that we as human beings, there is no limit to our demand in improving our health. I mean, in the end, what's one of the major goals we can have in human beings is to have a better life for more people. Now, a better life, health is an essential element of a better life. And we've seen in the period of COVID how high the bar is being put. I mean, we have, in a year's time, developed, tested, produced, and administered vaccines to a big part of the world. It's amazing what we've done. We can be proud of it, but it should also push it, because this is now where the limit is. I mean, this is where the bar is. This is what everyone expects from us. And you see this evolution of on one hand, how important and how central our health and our well-being is being put again, and on the other side, the limits to the financing capabilities that we have as governments. Now, if you have those two constraints, the thing that solves that very often is technological evolution, and is creating a space where healthcare innovation can take place. I organized a few weeks ago an event, a Belgian event, with two persons from domains in which we are very strong in Belgium. One person is Peter Piot, which I guess a number of you might know, one of the most famous specialists in tropical healthcare, with a very nice link to Antwerp as well. The healthcare sector is one in which we are extremely powerful. And the other person was Patrick Gelsinger, and Pat Gelsinger is the CEO of Intel. Now, why did we invite him? That's because in nanotechnology, there's few places in the world that are actually better at it than we are, with the Research Institute of IMEC. And we put both of them on a stage. And they didn't really know each other too well. But the interesting thing is how fast those two industries are looking at each other in the domain of having more data, analyzing more data, working in a more individualized way in providing healthcare, and in actually pulling the medical world much earlier in the development of everything which is related to what we call semiconductors. This is a bit what I see here, is you need to pull two worlds much closer to each other. Which means that in the development of the models that the drone world could have, the needs of the medical world need to be integrated way earlier. And that way, I think an event like this one is a very interesting one. And then we, as a country, we need to be the place where that kind of innovation can take place. Yes, we are a complicated country. We often say that abroad. But are we the only complicated country in the world? Not really. I mean, other countries are complicated as well. And I think that actually that element of being complicated, I'd rather use it as an advantage. We are one of the most cosmopolitan places in the world. Brussels is the second most international city in the world after Dubai. And the decision power that we have in Brussels, there's not that many places in the world that actually have such a vast concentration of this decision power, and we have a technological world around it, and we have a commercial world around it. We have logistics and so on, and that's where we need to play our role: is bringing different people together, and daring in the use of technology. You know, I think too often there's two ways of looking at the impact that technology can have. You can see it as a threat. And if you see it as a threat, then you will have the disadvantages of it. That's for sure. Or you could look at it as, yeah, something which could be a threat, but also something which is an opportunity. If you see it as an opportunity, then you have a different mindset, and then you try to get the best out of it. I am convinced that the second way is the way we should look at it. And I would actually be looking forward to see drones fly throughout, yeah, also my backyard, Erika. I'm not that afraid of it. Because I believe that as a government, to establish that, and I will finish with that, we have a role to play. And very often, the consensus is the more you deregulate, the more innovation you have. I'm not convinced of that. Yes, you need to create space, But good regulation can actually spur innovation. And actually, if you don't put good regulation, you do accidents afterwards. And an environment in which we know accidents will happen is actually not an environment in which people will invest. And in that, we as Europeans are actually quite strong. This is what we call our normative power. We've done it in many domains. We do it in GDPR. I know some people complain about GDPR, but the rest of the world is taking over our standards. So in this domain as well, a collaboration between government in setting the rules and ensuring that indeed there is no privacy problems, and creating a stable framework and knowing everything we have here in the country, I'm very optimistic about this. Each of one needs to play their role in it, but I think that there's not many places which are more fruitful than to test this out here in Belgium. Thank you.